So I'm curious, do you guys consider all the religions to be sort of equally bad? We could just start with the Western ones first.
Well,
let's start sort of with the
Are we talking about ideology or are we talking about politics?
Well, it's hard to separate them. Right now in 2016, it's extremely hard to separate them.
Yes, it is and it isn't. I mean, you know, David can talk all he wants about how ridiculous the belief in God is among Jews, and there's very slim chance that a Jew is going to blow up his car.
Right.
You know, not true for every religion, and not true for everybody in every religion. So, you know, it's kind of a constellation. But
so even there, you're sort of not saying which religion you're talking about.
Oh, well, you know, I'm not saying all Muslims are terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslims. I mean, you know, I'll come right out and say it. It's not 100% true.
Well, I know it's going to be Jewish terrorists.
There's some Christian terrorists. There's some Jewish. Yeah, absolutely.
Not too many atheist terrorists.
No atheist terrorists. That's what I always say. I would say there were no atheist terrorists because no, you never hear somebody say, I'm going to fly these planes to this building because no God didn't call to tell me not to.
Right.
But my point is...
That is.
I know, it's funny that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, you know, we'll get into the whole... Let's just dive right into the Islamophobia scenario.
Well, let's just stick with the atheism terrorist thing for 1 second, because there was that one guy in Sweden, remember, a couple of years ago that shot up that school.
Anders Breivik?
Yeah, I think so. And
he wrote the Knights of Templar.
But there was some confusion, I think, at one point whether he was atheist or something like that.
Yeah.
And I noticed that a lot of my friends on the left who should be promoting atheists and promoting secular values, suddenly they loved the fact that he either was an atheist or had some atheist values. But even that in and of itself doesn't prove that he did it in the name of atheism.
Well, you also hear about Stalin and Hitler too, that they were atheists. But you know,
Hitler was a Catholic. But yes, it's all straw man. It's all a straw man.
Yeah, which is, you know,
it's one straw.
But can you explain why it's straw man?
I think communist trumps atheist by a million miles.
Right. So that's what I can never understand. That when I see this from my friends on the left, and he was an atheist and he did this, like they're just waiting. I know the way they are.
Sure.
And they're just waiting for somebody, some crazy atheist to do something, and then so that they can pin it on them, and then they can pin it all the way up till they get it to Dawkins.
But
and they're trying to
atheism has no doctrine. Atheism has no ideology. Atheism has no dogma. You know,
that doesn't mean an atheist can't kill or be a bad person.
Of
course not.
Right.
Of course not.
See, I have to dumb this down a little.
Yeah, but I mean, it's so enraging when people look for reasons to blame atheists. Look, people, the terrorists, the thing that we have to get through when we're talking about religion, we have to get into the fact that all religion is individual. Every single believer, I can say something about every single believer. They believe in a God that agrees with them. Okay? There's nobody out there that says, I believe in a man in the sky that disagrees with me. My God is pro-choice, but I don't think so. Okay? That doesn't happen. Everybody believes in a God that agrees with them, which means those terrorists walking down the streets of Paris, shooting people in the streets, thought they were doing good work. They thought they were doing good. And the same with the Olympic Park bombers, the same with the Brussels bombers, the same with the people in the World Trade Center. They all thought they were doing good because religion is individual. And that means the basis for religious terrorism, the basis for religious extremism is exactly the same as the basis for religious moderatism and religion liberalism. You're all making it up as you go along, and people don't like that.
Right.
Because they want to say, well, no, I have a book, and the book says that I'm right. Well, the book also says that you're wrong over here, but we're ignoring that part. They want to have a basis. But if we're going to deal with religious extremism, we need to deal with the fact that all religion is the same. Mm-hmm. It's not about one religion or another. It's not about extremism versus not extremism. It's about the people who are doing it. It's about the people who have been raised in this religion cycle that makes them think that their God wants them to do some really bad shit.
Right. So you would acknowledge that look, if we're just doing the Western ones for a second,
okay.
The doctrines are all slightly different, right? The Old Testament is extremely violent.
Yeah.
The New Testament's a little less violent. Yeah. The Quran is very violent, right? So the doctrines are a little bit different, but it's not about the doctrines, you would say, as much. It's just how the adherents view the doctrine.
It's 100% how the adherents view the doctrine.
Yeah.
Are you going to believe in Harry Potter? Then all that shit's true too. I mean, the bottom line is, do you believe in the protagonist?
So so then here's where, to me, the religion conversation gets really interesting, because is there any other mode of thought, or is there any other set of beliefs that would allow people to do so many crazy things? Could anyone, a Frenchman, walk into that theater and under the guise of anything beyond, psychologically unstable or something, but beyond that, is there any other set of beliefs beyond religion that would allow someone to murder that many innocent people?
No, I think Hitchens, I believe, said it best, that good people do good things and bad people do bad things, but for good people to do bad things, that takes religion. And he's exactly correct. The people who are the worst terrorists in the world think they're good people.
Yeah.
They think they're doing God's work. Those people, like again, back in Paris, they're shooting children on the streets. Guess what? They thought they were doing those children a favor by sending them to heaven early. They expected to be rewarded.
Well, they don't think those kids are going to heaven. Those kids are infidels.
They were going to Allah, who would make the decision. And if they were good people, they were going to...
The dead kid infidel goes to Allah to make the decision?
Allah makes all the decisions. And they're setting him up to Allah for judgment. And if he's good, he's going to heaven. Yay, Allah.
By the way, radical Muslim terrorists are responsible for a lot of Muslim deaths.
Sure.
For more Muslim deaths than anyone else.
Exactly. So yes, it is.
And that's because an infidel is just somebody outside of your sect of Islam, not necessarily your...
Right. The same is true for, the Christian fundamentalists who kill abortion doctors.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely believe they're doing good for unknown, unnamed children to come.
Right.
And
that's one of the ones where the political part of it is very coupled with it, because then you hear rhetoric from politicians.
Exactly. And that's what you now have in Muslim extremism.
I remember.
Is the notion that Sharia law, which is religious doctrine, should be political doctrine.
Right.
Should actually be global law. It should be the way the world runs.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very strongly and closely held faith of their belief.
It's exactly the same as Ted Cruz's dominionism. That they want the
Dominionism is another
Christianity to
ballgame,
be the run. And what does that mean? Well, that fundamentally means the religious leaders rule the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
because the religious leaders tell you what Allah or God or Jesus wants.
I have said repeatedly that for all of my friends, I was at a party with you a couple weeks ago, and I'm talking to all these good LA liberals, and everyone's going on and on about how they hate Trump. I've done several videos how I do not support Trump. I don't like Trump. But I couldn't understand how they were all more angry at Trump than Ted Cruz, who stands in stark, complete opposition. I don't know what Trump believes. That's my issue with him more than anything else.
I'm not sure.
But he's a New York guy, and I don't really think he's against abortion in reality. And you know what I mean? Like, I think he's just trying to make a sale. Okay.
I think he should be president of a union.
Right. That
so religious that he couldn't name a single Bible verse.
And screwed up the thing.
Genesis 1.
Sure.
Couldn't name Genesis 1.
And where was the one time he sort of cracked under pressure? It was at Liberty University.
Yeah.
So when he had to pretend he was religious, he sort of cracked. But I was talking to all these good LA liberals, and they were all more fearful and afraid of Trump than Ted Cruz. And I was trying to explain to them, that's the scarier guy in this equation. That's the guy, if he became president, well, there's a reason he might want to ratchet up things in the Middle East, because this Armageddon thing, right?
Yeah, So that's why...
I don't even have a question there. That's
which is all cynical as well, because if ultimately all that comes to pass, it's only, 144 people or something, 144,000
and so
people that end up...
If we take that back, now we're going back to the label, okay? Now we're going back to the why it's my business what atheists call themselves. If atheists are 2.5% of the population, but we're actually 27% of the population, the Ted Cruzes are not going to pay attention to us. And when we're talking about closeted atheists, we're talking about foisting our power away over to the Christian right. We're actually giving our power there. If we as atheists would call ourselves atheists, unify under a word, and stop trying to say, no, I'm not an atheist, I'm a secular rationalistic Christian who doesn't believe in any gods. No, you're an atheist. If you would unify, if we can just come together on this, we have a social responsibility to do that, to stop the religious right who has dominionist tendencies, who actually has people in power who want to bring around the end of the world. I'm speaking literally now.
Yeah, so that it's just hard to wrap your brain around.
But it's
I think for regular people, and I mean this for myself too, it's hard for me to believe that if I'm to believe that Ted Cruz believes the things that he says he believes, that this is the shit he believes.
Well, this goes back to your earlier question. The hardcore fundamentalist, dominionist Christians are no different in ideology and fervency than the radical Muslims.
Correct.
at this moment in time, they're not killing as many people.
No, but that's just that's a technique and a strategy. It has nothing to do with the commitment that they have to their ideals. You know, the Christians are more concerned with doing it politically.
But Ted Cruz firmly believes that subjugating the Constitution under his version of the Bible is the good deed. And if we have an Armageddon type of situation, it'll be fine because God is in control.
Yeah.
This is our problem, Dave. If we talk about Ted Cruz, and then we take just a broader look, if we talk about all of the separation of church and state issues, we talk about abortion, we talk about death with dignity, we talk about LGBT rights, we talk about the pay gap. These are our fault. These issues exist because atheists are in the closet. And that's why it's our responsibility to come out. That's why it's our responsibility. So many atheists say, oh, you shouldn't tell me what I should call myself. Yes, I should, because what you call yourself affects me.
Yeah, I love that link that you just made there, because everything that I've done on this show has been about me trying to help the left, which I see in such disrepair and being pulled by such bad forces. So I feel it's my duty to help the left. And now I see that absolute parallel for you in the work that you're doing.
The revolution eats its own children.
Yeah, it does eat its own children.
Yeah.
I'm being eaten as we speak.
Yeah.
So, man, we've got these guys. So you must not have a lot of hope, then, for our political future in this country, because it doesn't seem to be going away.
Oh, I do. I have a lot of hope, yeah. Well, let's talk about the politics for a second, okay? We got a guy on the left, got a Bernie Sanders, okay? He calls himself a non-religious Jew. Yeah. Okay. He's the first political candidate with the word non-religious attached to his name. On the other side, we got Donald Trump, 2 Corinthians, couldn't name Genesis 1, couldn't name John 3:16, okay? Yeah. Go back 20 years.
Could that have ever happened, right?
Right. The religious right is freaking out. The religious right is pouring all its support to Ted Cruz. The religious right is trashing Bernie Sanders for being an atheist. The religious right is trashing Donald Trump for being an atheist, okay? And everybody's talking about it. Today, nobody's talking about Bernie Sanders. Jerry Falwell Jr. just endorsed Donald Trump, somebody who couldn't name the Bible verses. So why? We've gone from the religious right attacking the atheists and throwing their support behind religious candidates to being quiet about the atheists and supporting the candidates that are already winning in order to ride coattails. We are seeing the evaporation of the religious right privilege. I mean, yeah, we've still got a lot of ways to go, but we're seeing a rise in atheists on the conservative side. We're seeing a rise in people calling themselves atheists more on a state-to-state level than anybody else. And we're seeing people getting really, really intolerant of people saying, I want my Jesus to be, you know, the king of the land. We are making really serious headway. It's just taking time. Yeah. But it's going to happen in our lifetimes.
So I know that there's a certain amount of people that are going to watch this and they're going to say, but your secular values, they are not derived of some sort of innate goodness. You know what I mean? That seems to be a big thing.
Well, that's my
neither are the religious values.
But, yeah.
So then that's the answer to that. Yeah. When someone says that to you,
I'll go head to head with Jim Baker any day you want. Yeah. Let's go. Let's talk about it.
How much money have you embezzled from believers in your life?
Zero.
Come on, Pat Robertson. Let's talk blood diamonds. Yeah. Let's talk blood diamonds. Let's talk about these values. I mean, where is the commandment against rape? Where is the commandment against slavery?
It's also, it's also astonishing that people still give money in droves to somebody who claims that God wants them to have a private jet. And I think that's why a lot of far-right candidates who Dominionist-like or espouse that sort of stuff publicly, like a Ted Cruz, I think a lot of the support for them also sits back and goes, well, he doesn't really mean that. He's just saying that to get the idiots on board. You know, he's just saying that to get the lowest common denominator on board, but he doesn't really believe that himself, which is a whole other question. I don't know what's right or wrong as far as that goes, but I don't think people really believe that it's dangerous. And it is.
It's really dangerous.
New atheists, the phrase new atheist.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a new atheist?
I consider myself an old atheist. The new part about new atheism, we keep talking about people being offended when you attack their religion, and I mentioned before about people, being conned and scammed. The thing about new atheists is that we're not granting religion the privilege that it wants.
Right. Okay. So that's how you would define it. That's the only difference.
That's it.
The beliefs, the lack of belief system is exactly the same.
Way older than religion.
Yeah.
But I mean, Madeleine Murray O'Hair didn't respect religion, so it's not new. New is the wrong word. But we're talking about an open acknowledgement of the fact that, no, I do not respect your belief. I respect you as a person, but your belief is stupid, and and I'm not going to respect it just because you say it. And that is what makes us in your face.
Yeah.
When I call religion a myth, which it is, when I call religion a scam, which it is, I'm being in your face. I'm being oppressive and obtrusive. I'm not. They're not, though, when they're using
right. They're happy
laws.
when they're on the other side of it. They're
yeah,
okay.
that's all good.
Right.
So
and and there's this privilege that religion has had for centuries, certainly here in this country. The fact that they pay no taxes, the fact that they are. They get special parking, all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's
Wait, religious people get special parking?
Oh yeah,
Where's the special parking?
You get a clergy.
You don't get
parking.
it. You're an atheist.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, and I understand.
I think you're confusing being handicapped with being religious. I think it's bad.
That I can see how you would think that.
When the churches come in, when the big churches come in, the police direct traffic, and he's talking about all these things that the public pays for, that churches get because the churches say so.
Yeah.
The tax exemption that churches get because the churches say so. The parking help, the police, the fire, all of that stuff that the churches get because the church says so is a function of religious privilege, and it puts non-religious people on a second-class status.
Yeah. So wait, I want to circle back to something you just said about the ideas and people, because I've repeatedly, probably every week, I just heard it was the 32nd episode that we've done here, I think pretty much in 32 shows, I always make the distinction between ideas, meaning, and if we're talking about Islam, that Islam itself, the religion, is a set of ideas, and Muslims are the people that practice it, and they deserve respect based on how they practice their religion, just like anyone else would. I've tried to make that over and over, no matter how many times I do it. X amount of people just can't, they can't get there. But at some point, and I've had a lot of people say this to me, and I think there might be some truth to it, at some point, can those things not be separated? You know what I mean? At some point, when you whittle it down and you keep whittling it down, as you said, you want to respect the person, but not the belief. But at some point, the person who has the belief, how do you respect that?
Well, religious people are victims of a scam, okay? They're victims. They're not stupid, and they're not immoral, and they're not retarded or anything like that. They are victims of a scam. And my mother was a victim of a scam, and my grandmother was a victim of a scam. And there but for dumb luck go we, right? If we were raised in fundamentalist households, we might be victims of the same scam. We do need to, where do you draw the line is what you asked. I draw the line when I'm talking to somebody and I reason with them and they say, yeah, you're right, Dave, but I'm going to choose to believe anyways. You can't choose to believe. You only can choose to pretend to believe. Right? You can't choose to believe. You cannot.
Well, that's what belief is. I mean, that's just the definition.
No. There's a big difference between.
We've had this conversation. Let them go.
Yeah.
If I held a gun to your head and said, or if I had a button and I'm going to destroy the world unless you truly believe the world is flat.
Right, got it. You can't force me to believe, but I can choose to say.
You can choose to pretend to believe. Okay? And when you start choosing to pretend to believe, now you're talking about somebody who's making a choice. Now you're talking about somebody, that I would judge on a larger level. I mean, if somebody is choosing to be a bad person or is choosing to live a lie because they're too cowardly or stubborn to admit that they have been acting wrongly, then yes, I judge them on an individual level. But when I'm talking about religious believers, no, religious believers aren't stupid. And on the high end, religious believers are not stupid. They're not morons. They are victims, which makes it our prerogative to help them. Just like if they were victims of a used car salesman or homeopathy or astrology or tarot card readers or any other scam.
Or an internet scam.
Right. Or an internet scam. It is our job as humanists, as nice people, to help these people away from that scam.
Right. That's a big mountain to climb, though, because people don't want to view themselves as victims.
Tough shit. They're still victims. That's it. I mean,
that's that new atheist attitude.
That's the new atheist. It's too bad. We have to deal with facts now. We have to put on our big people pants and deal with facts. Religion is a scam. Believers are victims, and it's a good thing to help people away from it. And the amount of evidence for religion equals the amount of evidence for tarot card readers and other scams and psychics. Zero. It's a lie. It's a scam. It's a con, and killing it dead is a good deed.
I wish this guy could be a little clearer on what he's trying to say. Maybe with a little clarity.
Well, you should read his book.
Would be nice there.
You should read my book.
I'm behind on my reading right now. I know. what do you make of the pecking order of religion, the way we talk about religion? So, right, like we could all very easily make fun of Mormonism right now, and people would go crazy and they'd love it. It's the easiest thing you can do.
Right,
play on Broadway.
Well, that's also, a lot of Christians are complaining that, you can make fun of us, but you can't make fun of Islam or whatever.
Oh, I do. I draw Muhammad.
So you just
I draw Muhammad openly, and I think everybody should draw Muhammad.
So I agree with you, because just because someone believes something doesn't mean it should control what I'm able to do with my brain and my body.
It's not blasphemy if you don't believe.
You know what, Dave?
But they think it is, and that's the inherent danger. Look, Charlie Hebdo, didn't they say that they're not going to draw pictures of Muhammad anymore? I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm not.
No, I don't believe they said that.
I think they did.
There are hundreds of thousands of religious laws in this world, and none of them have any authority over us whatsoever. Okay, they all have that in common. And I'm reminded of a story that Penn told me once that wasn't his joke, but a man walked up to another man, notices that he's got a Mason ring on, says, "Oh, I see you're wearing a Mason ring." First guy says, "Yeah, I got a Mason ring, it's a nice ring." First guy says, "Well, you must be a Mason then." Second guy says, No, I just like the ring." First guy says, "Well, it's against Mason law for you to wear the ring unless you're a Mason." And the second guy says, "Well, it's a good thing I'm not a Mason then." Right? We can obey. We have a freedom in this country, and we need to protect it. And when they say you have to observe our religious laws, you don't get to draw a thing anymore. You don't get to say a word anymore. You don't get to wear your hair like that anymore because it's against our law. It offends us. We're the ones who should take offense at that.
Right. So we better wake up now.
We
right?
have
like
to.
That's the key thing.
If you look back at the Danish cartoon protests, you'll see a very common theme: do not draw Muhammad in the protests. And everybody in the world said, "We will not yield to terrorism." And then everybody yielded to terrorism. And now I'm a provocateur if I draw Muhammad. But now look at the more recent protests. They don't say "do not draw Muhammad" anymore. They say "do not insult Islam." Because when you yield a point to terrorism, it's never the last point you will yield.
Yeah.
They're always going to make more baby steps. So it is our prerogative as American citizens for our children to protect every single right. If they tell you that you can't sit exactly in that position, it's your job to sit in exactly that position as much as you want.
More than your prerogative, it's your duty.
It is.
It's your duty as a human being.
It is. It really is. That's why I draw Muhammad every time I can, and I think everybody should.
Yeah. Well, I will see what happens on Twitter.
You know what? And it's fine.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And it's if you buy Fighting God, there's a section in Fighting God where I drew Muhammad as a stick figure. And I actually had to draw this and label it not Muhammad. Yeah. Because if I drew it as Muhammad, they wouldn't put it in the bookshelves.
Right.
So I literally had to yield to terrorism in order to publish Fighting God.
God, that's depressing. All right, God, that's depressing. There you go. All right, so we only have 2 minutes left, so I want to try to end this, and let's move away from terror for a second. Let's get a little peace to end this thing with. So I just took
Reason Rally. Let's talk about the
let's talk about Reason Rally. But I just took 9 days off the online. I was off the grid for 9 days. I literally had my phone locked in a safe, and I wasn't on Twitter, and I didn't watch TV until today. Now I'm back. It's good to be back.
Welcome home.
But it was great to be off. And what I did, I was on a beach in Mexico, and I read Sam Harris's Waking Up, which is a guide to spirituality without religion. And I thought it was great because there is a component to being human about a need for spirituality and to be connected with other people and finding some sort of mental clarity and all that stuff that I think you should want and strive for without religion. So my final question to you guys, and then bring it to the Reason Rally, and then we got to wrap, is there anything that you guys do in your life to get a little spiritual nourishment?
Yeah, for me, it's art. It's beauty, it's art, it's music, it's comedy, it's laughter, it's joy, it's all those things. But I also feel like, religion, certainly the Judeo-Christian religions that, that gave human beings dominion over the earth, I think that's a big place where it all kind of went south because we have removed ourselves from nature. And I think the more we realize that we coexist with nature, that we are part of nature, that we are not something above or below nature, we're in the food chain, we're in the ecosystem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I do believe that that just the natural world and the way nature exists, and the fact that we're all made of stardust. If that doesn't give you some sense of what we know as spirituality, I don't know what would. And it's the opposite of a supreme being or any sort of fiction. It's right here.
Yeah, it's right here. This right very second.
You know.
Good finish, Paul Provenza. Bring us home, Silverman.
I like activism. Activism gives me a lot of awe because I can help people. I can see the amount of change that people are seeing. I can see the evolution of people on an individual level. And I love that. I love watching people expand beyond their comfort roles. And I love doing it myself. I do a lot of reading and I do a lot of contemplating. I've been doing a lot of that in the past couple of years. And I've grown as a person on a regular basis as much as I can. And I think that's a very important thing for us all to do. But really, if where I get my awe, where I get my spirituality is from helping people away from the lie of religion. And when people write to me and tell me their stories and they read the book and they go onto they come to an American Atheist Convention or they come to the Reason Rally, I get a very beautiful sense of awe. Reason Rally 1, I know we're about to go into it, but it was my most awe-inspiring moment.
It really, truly was. I mean, it was beautiful. It was
beautiful.
Joyous. It was uplifting. It was. There was such a connection and a community of thousands and tens of thousands of strangers.
Of atheists in the rain.
There was a vibe of
it rained. God made it rain.
It was the closest thing that I could imagine people mean when they say they're having a religious experience. And it was about celebrating non-belief.
Yeah.
It was about celebrating everything other than fiction.
All right, listen, we really have to wrap, but clearly we could go on forever. So Reason Rally, is it just reasonrally.org?
It's reasonrally.org.
Yeah.
It's June 4th, 2016. American Atheists is at atheists.org.
Yeah.
And Fighting God is the name of my book. It's available everywhere.
You're doing the full outro for
I
it.
am.
Reason Rally,
I'm going to let you pimp yourself out.
The Reason Rally is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
On the comedy end, which I'll talk about because I was
Yeah,
involved
go
with, Margaret Cho, Liz Winstead, myself, Penn Jillette, who else?
I should do a show from there or something.
From a comedy perspective, we're also talking about Amber Heard.
Amber Heard.
Of course, our star is Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp
is going to be there speaking.
James Randi is going to be there. We're going to have Bill Nye. We're going to have Lawrence Krauss. We're going to have all the atheist
great
leaders.
Music.
And we're going to have Wu-Tang Clan members coming up and do Wu-Tang Clan music. And it's going to be the most amazing experience. It's going to be the largest atheist event in world history.
And it's a party.
And it's a party.
We're not protesting.
It's not a protest. It's called a rally, but it's much more of a party.
We
and
want
it's gonna be a lot of
Washington.
fun.
We want Washington right in the thick of it. We want Washington to see that any member of government that wants to defy the Christian right or any other religious-based doctrinaire enterprise has support.
Yeah. All right. Well, I asked God for 5 more minutes, and He did not give it to me. Well, we have to wrap this. But it's really been a pleasure, guys, and I'll have you both on again to talk about this. And there's also a lot of other things that you guys like talking about. You already pimped yourself out, so
I did pimp myself. What's the name of my book again? Oh yeah, it's Fighting God, right?
He is a true pro. All right. I want to thank David Silverman and Paul Provenza for joining me. You can follow them both on Twitter at Paul Provenza and at Mr. Atheist Pants, or just follow them to hell. Your choice. All right. Thanks for watching, guys.